video tutorial for just learning different poses and good alignment, and even sometimes we do some flows, how to get into certain poses and postures. So just a little background of poses. Poses are called asanas, and they are only one of the 8 limbs of yoga. It's pretty interesting. Yoga is much more than just trying to get super flexible or to get into a cool asana or pose. Yoga is really about balance of the mind, body, and spirit, and really just focusing on the here and now. Too much effort goes into dwelling on the past that can't be changed, focusing on the future that we have no control of, and stress, anxiety, fear, all of that comes in, and it really doesn't serve us. And it is seriously as simple as just being here, being wherever you are, the here and now. If it's not where you want to be, it's not permanent. If it's where you really want to be, it's not permanent. So just living in the moment is a way for us to accept what we're at, where we have, where we come from, where we may go. And Alfred Adler is a psychologist from, I believe, the turn of the century, last century, and just a really underrated, dare I say, psychologist, kind of during the same time as Freud and Carl Jung. And he just took it as, we really can find happiness if we don't dwell on our past. But we live in the moment. We focus on making ourselves authentic and not worrying about what other people think, not trying to irritate anybody, but not worrying about how other people judge us, but living who we are and living to serve others. So true happiness comes from serving, and I don't mean literally serving, I mean doing things, contributing to the community by being your best self, whatever that is, looks for you. Nothing monumental. It could be letting someone cut in front of you and just not letting it bother you. So with that being said, a lot of times people want to learn the really super advanced poses without putting in the work that brings you from the beginner poses to those. And sometimes we just need to take a step back and really get to the foundation. So we're in Alabama. If you don't know, we're in Birmingham, and what's gone on in the last 2 weeks with our weather is just tons of tornadoes. Some people lost their lives, and it's just been a bit heavy. And then with what happened in Colorado, it's just, we need to find peace. And sometimes that just means being here, being now, and being okay. So with that said, I woke up this morning with probably another torn meniscus. I have no idea. I didn't do anything yesterday. I sat at home because of the tornadoes, but it's just where I'm at now, so I'm going to be okay with it. And I'm going to show you some modifications for knee issues, especially with some of the more relaxing poses and just what are more considered the non-advanced poses. So simply starting out in child's pose. So I'm not going to do child's pose because my knee has a tendency to lock, and when it locks, it really hurts. So those of you who have knee problems, if I had a blanket and was more prepared, that would be better. But I'm going to actually use the mat. So what I'm trying to do is find myself in child's pose without going into super deep knee flexion. So rolling, pretending this is a blanket, and rolling it up. And between my knees, now I have a little bit of cushion and support where it won't come down. So, or my knees won't completely be at 0 degrees and just completely closed. So this is what child's pose, of course, finding that length in the arms. But this is a good modified child's pose. And this is another phenomenal movement for restorative yoga. So if I had a bolster or a pillow, you can place that right there too. And of course, in restorative, you're not making it an active child's pose. But this is what it looks like to modify if you have knee problems, mostly torn meniscus, which is what I'm familiar with, or any other arthritis or anything. So finding your way into your child's pose, trying to see what it feels like to have a little bit of that cushion, just taking a couple breaths. Trying to reach that forehead to the ground, but wherever you're at, that's okay. And some people, they may even need to use, if they're very inflexible with their shoulders, working on shoulder opening, just kind of, it's a very modified child's pose, but just bringing that up. So that's the first modification of a pose. It's generally used on most practices. I'm trying to go from here because my knee really does hurt and I don't want to do any poses. Finding a lunge. So a lot of times when you first begin your practice, you start in a lunge and then you raise up to crescent pose. So crescent pose, pretend I have my lunge, crescent pose, arms up, hands together if possible, shoulders away from your ears, and then finding a back bend. So I'll do it on this knee. So this is a kind of how a lot of practices begin as you work into standing lunges. So it is my right knee. So that's why I'm not going to do it on the other side. But the modification that I do is actually finding a runner's lunge and utilizing a bit more of my hands. Generally, you should really be able to float your hands back and all your strength is on your legs, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm kind of finding a balance between what I can and what my body can't do, because injury is not really where you want to go with yoga. So this is how I modify that beginning low crescent pose. And again, on the other side. And I like, a lot of people, it's really the choice of a yogi. You can, if you have an injury, you can push yourself and challenge yourself on one side that's not the injury, and then do whatever you can on the other side. I like symmetry. So generally, if I have an injury, not if it is uncomfortable, but if there's actual pain, I will actually balance myself out by not challenging the healthy side. So, but that's up to you. Some people like to work harder, and it's really okay. So with the low lunge, of course, then you'll work your way into higher lunges. And lunge postures are a lot of the standing, bouncing sequences. All the warriors are lunge, and then of course crescent. So if you have knee problems, or if you're a beginner, it's kind of similar. So finding your way, I'll do the left leg, into crescent lunge. So it would look like this. You always want to don't forget to keep a little micro bend on that back leg. So, and then warrior two, of course, very fun. So the goal of warrior two, or where your posture to go into full expression. Of course, arms parallel to the ground, shoulder blades reaching towards each other, hugging each other. And then you're trying to find as deep of a lunge to get to that 90 degrees. Never taking your knee past your ankle and almost like lowering down more than just like pushing out. So that's what my correct Warrior 2 looks like. And that's on my healthy left knee. So, good modification, and again, this goes back to beginners, is just to not go as deep. And I know I just said symmetry, but there's a difference between not doing a full expression and not going into a deep lunge because of an injury. So, finding it on, I'm just going as deep without feeling pain. Trying to find an edge, a pain-free edge. And also, as you'll notice if you look, I guess if you look back and forth, I'm not lowering my spine, I'm kind of just going more into the lunge because I'm not at a 90-degree angle. And there is no pain right now, how I'm in this posture. So again, modifications are necessary for ability and for injury. Modifications should never be used for any other purpose because, I shouldn't say that. You shouldn't generally go into modifications unless your body tells you to, whether that's your spirit or your physical body. You shouldn't go into modifications because you just don't want to do the pose. I guess that's something that you need to look at with your mind, your mental health. So lastly, as you go into rehabbing or you start therapy or you do it on your own, as you start getting that health back into whatever is the joint, the bone, the muscle, whatever is messed up, again, pushing yourself, but not to pain. So one of the hardest ones for me when I had my last surgery was butterfly pose, cobbler's pose. So generally, and I'm not gonna do it right now either, you want your heels back to your groin, lengthen the spine, and then fold over. I can't do that right now. So the modification is bringing those, keeping that angle at whatever it may be for you today, and then reaching forward. That's a little too far for me. But again, I'm not closing my knee joint because I'm afraid the tear is going to flap over, and that's what causes the locking. So again, whenever you're in cobbler, wherever you're at, lengthening that spine and then folding. That's how you work into a cobbler's pose. If you've been doing this for a few breaths or a little while longer, then you're welcome just to roll round over your back. That's not really getting any stretch, but it's a wonderful restorative pose. So again, deep breath in, lengthen that spine, tall, and exhale, folding forward, hinging at the hips. So those are some modifications for knee problems. Simple poses, or beginner, not simple poses, but more of a restorative pose such as the child's pose, and then showing some lunges and also some more stretching joint postures, cobbler's pose. So thank you so much. If you are still with me, close down your eyes, take a deep breath in, hold, and then let it all out. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.